at a number of partners outdoors meetings, but we've asked him to add a little bit of reality. We have lots of information about recreation. What we need to do is take raw information and convert that into knowledge and then take action on it. And I think that Frank at RBFF is leading the way in terms of just not only acquiring information, but actually making it something that we know what to do with, and to then apply it to, in his case, getting more people on the water, enjoying fishing and boating. And to tell us a little bit about that, we've invited Frank to be with us here this morning. And Frank, take it away.
Thank you. Well, good morning. And anybody who is an LSU fan, I feel very sorry for this. I didn't watch much of the game because it didn't seem like it was much of a game. Anyway, they sort of switched quarterbacks. I would have recommended that. And then, you know, Derek, with your party tonight, there is a big doings going on north of here in New Hampshire, so people will be interested in that. Well, hello and good morning. And Derek, as always, thank you for inviting me to this meeting. I think this is my 4th Partners Outdoors. And so I've had an opportunity to meet some of you. Some of you are new, but again, thank you. Derek asked me to talk about some of the research we do, and more importantly, what we do with that research. When I came to RBFF a little over 5 years ago, I was blessed with a plethora of research that had been done by the association before I got there. And to go through all that was a monumental first step, because literally there were reams of research projects that were done. I had a simple philosophy in my previous positions in life. If you're going to research something, you know, and you don't do anything with it, why do the research in the beginning? Okay. So every research project we have done starting in February of '07 when I came to RBFF, that's been the mantra. If we can't get actionable intelligence out of doing something, we're not going to do it. So what I'm going to share with you today, and Derek, if you can, Derek's my clicker this morning. I'm going to talk about 2 research projects we did. One was a market segmentation research. My board, at our last strategic planning session a few years back, wanted us to figure out where growth in fishing and boating are going to come in the future. What segments? And historically, you heard a little bit of it yesterday when we were over at Williamsburg, people tend to look at demographics as a way to segment markets. Age, gender, ethnicity, income, et cetera, and so forth. We took a little different approach with our market segmentation. We actually wanted the research firm we hired to look at behaviors, what motivates people to get involved in outdoor activities, and what motivates people specifically to go fishing and boating, because that's our charge. Our charge is to increase participation in fishing and boating. And so we thought, you know, what makes people want to do that? It doesn't matter, you know, if they're a 65-year-old or a 12-year-old or 18-year-old in this case. We went 18 and over in the population. What motivates them? And then the other project I'm going to talk about is an annual fishing and boating participation research study we do in conjunction with the Outdoor Industry Foundation. And that gives us some interesting information on some demographic information, but it goes down to youth, age 6 and above. And it also looks at who fishes, who doesn't. It looks at the lapsed population. And as you'll see when I get into that, there's a huge amount of people who lapse out of the sport every year, and that's an issue we have to address. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things we do that we get out of the research to break down barriers for people going boating and fishing, specifically TakeMeFishing.org and some of the digital tools that we have developed. So next, so we can just skip right over this one. So the market segmentation, again, we wanted to do it differently, and we took a look at the U.S. population 18 and over. Now, why 18 and over? Because one of our charges is, one of the things we're measured on, we measure participation by license sales and boat registrations. And there's about 35 million licenses sold every year, and there's about 12.5 million registered boats. And Cindy, correct me if I'm a little wrong, but I think that's the correct number, 12.4, 12.5. So our charge is to increase license sales 1% a year and increase boat registrations 0.5% a year. So with that in mind, we said, okay, well, what motivates people to do this? What behavioral characteristics do we need to look at? Next one, please. And as a result of that research, we looked at the behavioral characteristics of about 218 million Americans. And you'll see here that those behavioral characteristics were broke down into 8 groups, which we named. These are not names you're going to find in the real world, but they're names that we put on there. And what is interesting is there's 3 groups out of this 8. Isolated exercisers. Anybody, you can probably imagine what that person looks like. Gamblers, we can probably imagine what those people look like. And laid-back loners. This is the neighbor you never see coming out of their house, that has 14 cats or something. Anyway, of that 218 million people, those 3 groups make up 81 million Americans. And no matter what you would do, these 3 groups of people are not motivated at all to do anything outdoors, period. So, you know, you might as well not even look at that. Because I've been in presentations where people have said, oh my God, there's 310 million Americans, we should have more people out there doing it. Well, there's 81 million people, no matter what you did, they're not going to get involved in outdoor activities. So that leaves 137 million Americans who have a propensity to get involved in outdoor activities, but for different motivations. Dabblers, that makes up the biggest group here. Dabblers are just what they'll do. They may try fly fishing this year. Next year they may try mountain biking. Next year they may try some other outdoor activity. They'll do it if they're invited by a friend who has a boat or has a cabin on the lake, etc. But they'll try and experiment with different activities. But they're very hard to get them motivated on one activity or another. So a lot of you who see people who maybe visit a park or dabble in something one year, they may not come back the next year. So that causes part of your up and down lapse that seems to occur in these outdoor environments. But of the 5 segments that are left, our current campaign pretty much touched all of those segments. From when you look into behavioral, then we overlaid demographics and media habits on top of that. And we were pretty much covering the other 5 groups that were. So the dabblers, the outdoor enthusiasts, which they're avid about everything outdoors. Family outdoors. When you look at this research and you look at our other research, people who have children are more apt to get involved in outdoor activities. So this family outdoors group we put a big red star on that, because if you look at the number of people participating within that family outdoors group and the number that could, there's a growth opportunity there. Outdoor excitement, that's just what it's, that's the guys you see flying down the mountains on the snowboards and all that kind of good stuff. Affable adventure is another, adventure-seeking, high thrill, speed, etc. So, next slide, please. So what we have done is, in addition to currently trying to motivate the markets we're looking at, we really want to focus this coming year on 2 segments in addition to what we've already focused on. So with the same budget, we're going to try to stretch it out a little bit more. But the family outdoor segment, this, interestingly enough, when we did the qualitative and then we did some quantitative, this group really has a love of the outdoors that they learned as kids, but they haven't necessarily passed that on to their children. And there was a lot of guilt in the room around not passing that on and why they didn't do that. So we're going to try to motivate that group to do it. It's probably the best growth segment that we have. And the outdoor enthusiasts, there's a couple of things we want to do with them. Another thing that came out of this research, and this is not going to be a surprise, but it was just reinforced by what we did here, is in fishing and boating, everyone needs a mentor. There has to be someone that originally motivated you or started you down this path. And the outdoor enthusiast is the group that can be the mentors to the next generation. They are avid about outdoor activities, they're avid about fishing and boating. We got to make them avid about teaching other people. There's been whole generations in this country that haven't had mentors for one reason or another. and we've got to somehow figure out how to get that back. Now, we have some programs, our Anglers Legacy program that promotes mentorship, and I know there's a lot of other groups that have mentor programs, but that is a key. We need to energize that group to do more. Next slide, please. So, how do we do that? Now, many of you have seen the Take Me Fishing campaign evolve over the years. And Cindy, don't get excited, this is just a mock-up. There's no engine on the boat. But we have 5 different creative treatments all around this idea of bringing the outdoors and fishing and boating as part of the outdoors. Camping and hiking and fishing are the 3 gateway activities to outdoor activities. And the crossover between, again, coming from the research, camping, hiking, fishing, boating is tremendous. We have to show that in our promotions. The other thing we wanted to do is we wanted to get away from the fancy photographs of people flying across the water and this, that, and the other thing. We wanted something to stand out, both in print and in our online display. Okay? And the other thing we wanted to highlight with this, that also came out of the research, is now that we know what motivates people, well, what are the barriers? What prevents them from doing that? And number 1 barrier was they don't know where to go, they don't know what's available to them. Well, that's something we certainly handled with TakeMeFishing.org. They don't know what to do, they don't know how to do it. Well, our Fishopedia section on TakeMeFishing.org covers that. They know they got to get a license or they got to register. How do they do that? Well, we provide that information as well. So this is just one creative mock-up that I had that was that we may use in certain outdoor publications, not necessarily where you would normally find Take Me Fishing. So, you know, we got to change a little bit. We've got to understand the motivation of the customer. So we got to be willing to go out a little bit on a limb with some of this stuff, and we're going to try that. Now, we will measure this. We know exactly right now how our current campaign performs, and it performs very, very well. 52% of our target audience is aware of the Take Me Fishing brand and TakeMeFishing.org, which is as high as it's ever been. It was 5 years ago, it was like 32%, so it's really grown. So we're taking a risk on this a little bit. I mean, we're in the middle of a campaign that's doing well, that continues to grow. Our website numbers are up to over 6 million, going to be 6 million visits this year. So we're going out on a limb because the research is telling us if we want to attract a different market and grow even further, we've got to take this approach. Next, please. Now, after we did all this behavior and motivational research, you heard it yesterday, the questions that came out to the fellow over at the Williamsburg Center with, what do you do with the Hispanic population? What do you do with this? What do you do with minorities? How do you know, since I came on board, I mean, the Fish and Wildlife Service has been drilling into my head that the Hispanic population is growing. I just went to a big boating summit in December where there was a whole presentation on the Hispanic growth. And we all know, just like the fellow said it yesterday at Williamsburg, we all know this is happening. What we don't know is how to get that group engaged, because there's no historical information. On almost every other demographic, you have historical buying patterns, historical information. You don't on this growing population, so we have to figure that out. So what we did is we actually then did a little demographic research in some focus groups, and we talked to senior citizens. We talked to men, we talked to women, we talked to African Americans, we talked to Asian Americans, and we talked to Hispanics. And actually what we found out, other than the Hispanic group, most of the other niche markets, as we call them, the behavioral motivations that go outdoors and participate in fishing and boating were pretty similar, except for the Hispanic audience. So what we're going to do with this year is attempt our first foray into the Hispanic marketing program. Now, Hispanic population is growing all over the United States, but right now 80% of the population is concentrated in 6 states: California, Texas, Florida, New York, Arizona, and Nevada. We're going to do a 2-state test, probably California and Texas, where we're going to actually convert some of our assets on TakeMeFishing.org into Spanish, and we're going to actually go out and do a campaign to attract people to those assets on TakeMeFishing.org. The other thing about the Hispanic population, and this came out in general, but particularly here, is their use of technology.